Hi guys, welcome back to Sister Sis. It's been a little while since we last recorded, but we are grateful as always. Hope you've all had a great break, a wonderful start to your new year. We're just going to jump right into it.
We are, yeah. We keep having breaks.
Yes.
But we're not going to call them breaks anymore because life happens and we record when we can record.
Yes.
And when you guys give us the feedback of what you want to hear about. So that's what we're doing today. We are responding to some feedback we've had from someone who's continued to watch us from the very beginning till this present day, and really wanted us to touch on some subjects that we might have just touched on in other topics, but really wanted to just consolidate that and bring it to you.
Yes, so today we're going to be talking about parental guidance, not as in PG films or PG music necessarily, but the guidance that we as parents or the generation before could or couldn't have given, that kind of has led to certain patterns, traits and behaviours that we either see or are present in people that we kind of know. There's a lot of people who obviously, we send our children to school all the time, and a lot of people send their children to school with the hope that they would become a well-rounded person. You cannot in this day and age, in any day and age, leave the education system to deal with your child alone. There's a lot of lessons that children need to be taught, from self-care, self-love. I'm sure you know other ones.
Yeah, definitely. I think just general well-being, mental health, confidence, self-esteem, all those things are not something you're going to get from a school in this country. It's not something you're going to go. Some schools are better at providing pastoral care than others, but it's pastoral care. It's a subject that's been planned for and taught. It's not a holistic type approach to developing well-rounded people, and being in a public sector role. I know that there's no way teachers could do that, even if they're passionate teachers. It's not their role to. If you choose to have children, it's actually your role. I think the problem used to lie where people had children because they became pregnant, not because it was a conscious decision or a choice. That is still happening. That's always going to happen. And a lot of people put it down to children having children, but that also is incorrect, because if you've had guidance, no matter how young or how old you are when you have your children, I'm not advocating for people to have children young, no way, but at the same time, I had my children very young. It didn't mean that I was an inadequate parent because of it, because I had grounding and I took the advice from my grandparents and that was passed down, and you have ancestral knowledge that you pass down. So that really isn't an excuse to be a bad parent.
And on the back of that, you've got people who wait a lot longer in life to have children that don't have the guidance. So in actual fact, just like you said, there is no necessarily age difference. Again, we're not advocating for sort of young parenting and anything like that. But age is not a definition of maturity. Maturity comes through learning the lessons, taking the advice and the guidance, and instilling the skills and the lessons that you've actually been taught.
And I think a lot of the time, I don't know if it's just our generation and the ones below, we're just so accustomed to being defensive and having a lack of respect for those who came before us. And some of it is valid. I understand that. I would never take away from the perspective of you are not happy or satisfied with the people who are above, but there will always be people in the above generation who can give you guidance and wisdom too. You need to look for those people if you're not getting it in your home. We all have a responsibility to provide the next generation and for them to be equipped with what they need. We can't just expect that they're going to know what we know without teaching them. And a point that was made to me, I was out having dinner last night, and the company I was with, we were discussing just the understanding. Some parents don't understand the need for a hug, the need for physical contact and interactions, and warmth and love that parents absolutely need to give their children. And I am speaking from someone who fortunately had a lot of that from one parent, maybe not so much the other. But I had two parents, and I give thanks that I was grown up in a kind of village type way. We had aunts and uncles and who shared love with us. We have cousins who we've grown up with, and the love is there. But I think some people who didn't have that feel like they've what's the word, validated the way they are because they don't know any different. So they've said, that isn't necessary to have physical contact. I'm fine. I grew up okay. I understand. You don't. That's nicey, or that's the way you've grown up. But they don't understand that a part of who they are, a part of the way they approach things, in terms of emotional intelligence and how they build relationships, is a direct effect of the lack of that.
It's the cycle.
Yeah, you can't. It is a lack. I'm not going to even mince words. I know that it's fortunate and unfortunate depending on who you were born to, you know, which is a roll of a dice, you know, so to speak. I mean, it's not, because the universe has patterned who you're supposed to be born to and how your journey is supposed to go. But we can make a conscious decision as adults when we're going to become parents to say, I am no longer going to carry on that cycle. It stops with me. I understand that the way I am and how I am in society is a direct reflection of my environment and of my family and how I grew up. So we just really want to touch on that because the person I was speaking to also comes from a social working background. They have also been part of the adoption process, the fostering process, and have been very successful in that process and actually raised a number of children within their household successfully because they understand
the art of nurture, because there's nature and then there's nurture.
Exactly.
So as Tan said, the universe can conspire. You don't meet anybody by accident. So chances are the nature, i.e. how you're born or the parents you are born to, is already by design. But the nurture is what's in your control.
Yeah,
you have the power to choose and decide the level of nurture that you give to the people around you.
Even if you didn't get it.
Yeah, if you grew up with adults that didn't show much emotion, that were quite cold and sort of seemed cut off, could have been because they're busy. Could have been, you know, you grew up as a latchkey kid where you may have had one parent or two parents that had to work. So you ended up being in a household by yourself, having to work out what all these emotions mean. You might have been scared in the home alone. Again, you had to battle and wrestle with these emotions by yourself. But yes, validating it, that's what you might have grown up with or what you went through, but you now have it in your power to break that cycle and say, that's not what I want for my children. That's not what I want for the young ones around me. That's not what I want to pass on. I want to know different and I want to be different so I can give different.
I mean, definitely, I've been, you know, accused or have been told that I'm quite disconnected and quite cold. But there's a lot of times where I feel that when I grew up, I self-regulated through different emotions. Maybe because when you're going through something, it's something not there immediately. You have to deal with it. That's part of life. You have to get on with life. You have to learn coping mechanisms for you. But as a parent now, coming back into it, realizing I need to tell my children that it's okay to feel certain emotions. It is, your emotions are valid. You cannot invalidate someone else's emotions. So if you talk to your children and they want to express that, you know, I feel really angry that this happened. Yeah, they're your child and you're the parent, but actually if you just brush over what they've said because you're the authoritative person and you don't take that on board, you're not listening, you're not looking at it from the child's perspective, you're then invalidating what they say.
You've learned to silence their voice. You've literally, their throat chakra is there to be opened to express their deepest and rawest emotions. And if you silence them very early on, almost like when a child cries and you tell them be quiet or what you're crying for, that is raw emotion coming out. How do you then silence that? They grow up and get older and do not know how to open that floodgate. I'm currently, or have been, in CBT, cognitive behavioural therapy. I am being told that there is a 2-minute rule. Allow yourself to feel any emotion that comes to you for at least 2 minutes. Set a timer. This is whether you're an adult or a child. Allow yourself to feel your feelings. Do not bottle them up. If not, they fester and they explode.
And I mean, the age we currently are, there's a lot of people who are coming to like a breaking point, so to speak, where for years they've carried, you know, it is a form of trauma, whatever your trauma is, but they've carried things from their past, they've carried things from how they've been parented, And then they've got to a stage where it's like, this isn't me. I was never fully allowed to be unapologetically myself.
Yes.
I need to find myself now, which, when you look at the grand scale of things, is late in life. You know, it is quite
but
late.
It's never too late.
It's never too late. But when you look at other
Yeah.
cultures and other people, when children are allowed to be free, allowed to explore what vocations they want to go in, they're allowed to, you know, explore what kind of friends they want, what kind of friendships. I'm not saying you just give free rein and have unruly, undisciplined children. I'm saying that if you respectfully understand that your child is not just a product of you, and you're a dictatorship within your house,
yes.
but actually your children you've been blessed with these souls to develop and to nurture, but they're actually they're their souls in their own right.
Yes.
They are going to flourish and fly and hopefully fulfill their purpose to do good in the world in return. And once you have that perspective that your children are not yours, you're the vessel in which they came through,
basically,
but you don't own them. And the whole point is that you do want your children to grow up and to fly the nest and to be able to be independent, to be able to be caring, to be able to be savvy, to be able to be financially secure. You do want these things for your offspring, and it's important. I don't think you can get that if you don't give time for your children to talk. If you don't give time for your children to explore and express themselves freely to you, you just stagnate them. And then when they go out in the world to have children, their job is just doubly hard, if they can do it at all, because there is a lot of people out there who are children living in adult bodies, and they're having children, and those children, we can see the effects of it. We can see the effects of this on our streets, on our roads, in relationships. Even the word relationship, what does it mean anymore? In, you know, the word spouse,
to be
commitment,
able to relate to people. And if you can't relate, because what we're saying about children and things like that, it spills over. As we said, you get older, you get into relationships. If you don't know how to freely express yourself and open up, you might find it a bit strange that you have a partner that is okay with freely opening up with their emotions. You might see it as an attack on you because it's the opposite of what you know and what you've learned. This is, you know, we need to come out of this generation where we think, not this generation, this mindset where as the adults, you tell children what to do and children just comply. We need to give children a voice. Not that means, you know, they're disrespectful in any way, but children need to be able to express what they feel, what they think, and their opinion taken on board.
And there's an appropriate age for that for different conversations. So you're not going to have a full-blown adult conversation with your 5-year-old. It's age-appropriate vocabulary, age-appropriate language, but that it still needs to be that give and take of a conversation, that give and take of regular conversations. The consistency needs to be there. Your child needs to know that if I come and say this to mum, they might get angry because that's their personality, but afterwards they'll listen and action will be taken, and the necessary route to solving a problem will happen. They need to know that if you're happy, you react in this way. I mean, unless there are mental health issues within your parenting, hopefully something can be put in place, or you can have some sort of help to help you raise your children. If that is the case, if you do have your own issues still regulating your mental health and your well-being, your emotions, then please do seek help, because you may not think you're doing damage, you may not think that it's pouring and spilling over, but it really is. And when you speak to people who are in education, who are in social work, who are in the fostering and adoption process, and that community and that profession, it is heart-rending to hear how many children just lack physical contact, just lack love, basically. And a lot of people, you know, we put down to having your love language is physical touch. It's not a love language. It actually is a human necessity.
It's affection.
And I mean, some people might argue with me and saying, you know, monks live like this, or, you know, Buddhists live like this, and it's not a necessity. That's once you understand that self. But in order to get to that place, you have to have experienced that to know that. And it's really dangerous, I think, if people go their whole lives without actually knowing that, and without actually knowing what it feels like to have an unconditional person that's there for you and will ride with you or see things through regardless of your age. I mean, once you've had that grounding, and that grounding is put in place, once that foundation is built, then that's good. You know, trying to build on a rocky foundation. You see so many people who are in relationships where maybe both the parents have experienced some sort of toxicity growing up, and they're trying their hardest to raise their children in a different way, and they're doing it not knowing what that looks like, but they do seek advice, they read the books, they talk to the people, they ensure that, you know, they talk with their children and understand if they're getting what they need. And that's what it is. We all as human beings need our basic rights, our basic needs met.
Because even as parents and adults, you're always still growing. So even though you are raising children and the children are growing, you in yourself are still growing all the way throughout life. Nobody knows everything. So even your children sometimes might throw up something in a situation that you have to address that you've never dealt with before, but it's a learning curve for you as an adult too. Everyone gets grounded and everyone will get growth from it. And also adults need to come out of this thing as do as I say and not as I do. You have to be the living and shining example of what you want your children to see and be. It's all well and good telling your children, do this, do this, do this. I don't want you to do this, this and this because of. But what example are you setting?
It just flashed back. The classic was go and read your book. And obviously you don't see anyone reading a book, and it's like, it's not natural. It's not something that you see happening, so it seems foreign when someone tells you go and read a book. It shouldn't do, maybe, and some children do respond really well to that kind of discipline, that distance.
Some are visual learners, they need to see
but
that
we
example.
all know that you do you lead by you follow example. We do all know that, you know, you do look to your parents, they're role models. We all have role models, even if we haven't put that label on people as role models. We have people within the community you try to aspire not to be, but to walk in the way that maybe they've walked. And it's important for children to have those role models, and it's important that they see role models who show love. And even from a perspective working with young children, you see those children who get all of that. Like, we know how the brain cells connect and work, and in a very young brain, it doesn't connect. All those neurons that are supposed to be making links in your brain actually stop doing that when you do not receive the right emotional growth, the right emotional development.
If you don't have stability, if you don't have consistency, if you don't have these things, adults that are patient with you, it's almost like the children are living in fight and flight all the time. Always, children need stability, children need security, children need to know that there is a consistent person in their life. Unless children have these things, as you said, they go up into adulthood with a lot of uncertainty. So they approach a lot of things. They approach a lot of things with reactive traits and things like this. So we need to provide consistency. We need to provide stability. We need a solid foundation for children or relationships, whether they're familial or romantic. Everything needs a stable foundation in order to build something that is going to last.
And I think just to come out of this conversation, where my objective for this conversation was really so that from here, whoever listens to this will actually just be so much more conscious of the quality of the interactions they have with their youngsters, from babies, from in the womb.
Talk to them with love.
That energy. You know, if we all vibrate on the energy, so we say that negative energy is always felt by those who you've created. And whether you say it or not, it's there. People who think they're just putting out their best face for their children, they know, they feel it. It's in you, it's in the atmosphere, it's what they're breathing. And that's going to have an effect on that person as they grow up and as they become adults themselves. So just to be more mindful, just to be more conscious of how you want your people, your children to function when they become adults. What do you see for them? And if you don't see anything, have a look at that, because there's some people that don't even care about what type of parent their child's going to be. They're just so on themselves and so on what they're doing and their own hurt and their own energy. They haven't let that go. And I just really need it to stop here. Whoever our followers are, please, get yourself into a state where you can give love. You're living in a way or form of gratitude where whatever you have is around you.
And with integrity.
with integrity, please. We're out here to do a job. We've been born all for a purpose. We're all here to give love and to vibrate on that positive energy. It might take some of us longer than others, and some of us have been through more than others on this journey, but it is your journey. You are steering it, you are guiding it. Please have a look and a think about how you're growing up your children, what type of life you want them to be in, because life is what you make it.
And although Whitney Houston wasn't probably the greatest example, she's greatly talented. Children are the future. You have to teach them well and let them lead the way. They are the next generation. We have to teach them integrity, respect, all of these things. Even if children lose their way, if that is their foundation, they will always find their way back.
And I think I've given this example before on our previous show of me realizing about age 3, between 3 and like 6, that one of my children had no empathy, and that it was to me a given that you have a child, you're an empathetic person, that you would have a child, they would know what it is.
Which is a natural trait that people have.
That it would, because it's always been something inbuilt in me. And I just realised that actually this particular child of mine doesn't. He just cannot see.
He didn't. Not that he doesn't. He didn't. Past tense.
He didn't. And it was actually my goal for like a solid 12 months to instill the idea of empathy within him. It might not be something that's a natural trait, but you can't get through life without seeing things from anyone's else,
showing concern for others,
and actually being able to put yourself in someone else's shoes. And there were many examples when he was growing up where they were teachable moments, and I used all of those moments to teach him. And it's fantastic now. I couldn't fault him when it comes to being empathetic,
there's no fault,
or caring about people, but it was a conscious effort. It wasn't something I just left. Do you know what? That's how he is. That's what he's like. No, I have to actually take my time, daily practices, change them up, and think, how am I going to allow him to grow up with being an unempathetic person? It's just not going to happen.
No.
So it's just being more conscious of how and who and why you're doing things, and just give your children a hug. Please, even if you never got it when you're older, do not underestimate the power of physical contact.
And not even just physical contact, warmth, of encouragement, of gratitude, telling your child, well done, that was good, you look nice, actually, you're confident. Those things will push children to be the best that they can be. If children doubt that they are any good, or that they have self-confidence issues, or that they're achieving anything, and I don't just mean achieving as in academic, but achieving life goals and life skills, children need to hear that they are loved. Other than just the physical contact is important, but they need to hear this too. They need the validation. They need to feel accepted. I always go back to Maslow's hierarchy of needs, studying children, working with children. 5 most basic human needs. And we have to learn to all give children, our loved ones and the people around us, those 5 basic needs. When anyone has them, they are feeling fulfilled.
Definitely. And people who have experienced horrible childhoods, we are sorry that we are really sorry that people do, and people do every day. And there are millions of children in the care system now who are facing horrible childhoods. And we just want to say, just recover, try. When you get the opportunity to know what love is, you will get the opportunity. You will.
Even if you've been hurt in love, in a relationship,
the opportunity will come to you.
It doesn't mean you're undeserving of anything.
Don't push those opportunities away because you don't know what that's like, because it feels foreign. Don't reject it. Try to, as much as you can, embrace it. Take your time, because it can be overwhelming. If you're not a person who knows affection, who knows true love, and someone approaches you who wants to love you for who you are, and nothing else, just for you, and they feel your soul, they feel your character, allow that to happen, because it could be the best thing that's ever happened to you. And I mean, there's many things I've read about, if you didn't have those adults in your life for you, and you know what you needed, you be that adult.
Yeah, as they say,
Who would you have be the person?
Is it be the adult that you needed when you were a child?
Exactly.
If you were in your room by yourself, wanting an adult to come through that door and hug you, hold you, tell you that they love you, show you appreciation, ask you what's wrong, be that person for yourself now, and be that person for the children and the people in your life. You may not have had it, but you now have an opportunity to be that and to give that.
And if you're a person who has that in abundance, reach out to children in the community who might be searching for that, or parents who need support in providing that for their children, because not everyone will know how. But if you have the tools and you know how, you have the the capacity to give more, then do that. I'm looking to do that.
Share your warmth, share your light,
share what you have, share love. We all need love in this world. Sister Sis loves you. Take care, everybody. Keep warm. It's freezing out there. Stay safe and love those who love on you, and love those who don't love on you even more.
And we love you.